Welcome to another edition of Sam and Chris here on the Crimson Creed podcast. I'm Sam, here with my brother Chris. Chris, how you
Hello.
doing?
Pretty well. How are you, Sam?
I'm good. I'm good. We're here on Tuesday, April 19th, 4 days away from the 2022 spring game. I have my tickets, Chris. You're going to be probably looking at it from a little far away, but I'll be there in the stands giving you the updates. What are you most excited for in this spring game? What's the one thing sticking out to you?
The main thing sticking out to me is the quarterback situation. We're all real excited about Dylan Gabriel. He kind of has a unique situation coming into this one, as he will be the only player playing for both Crimson and Cream. It's not going to be like most years or like last year where Caleb Williams was for one side and Spencer Rattler was the other. It's going to be mainly Dylan Gabriel. So I'm intrigued to see how long he's in there, and then when they replace him, how how the other guys fare. But I'm excited to see the new fast tempo offense and the new yet also old aggressive defense. What are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, for sure. I'm really excited to just see Brent Venables back on the sideline. Um, what it comes down to is Brent Venables. He coaches how he coaches. There's not. I don't get the impression there's a spring game or a practice Brent Venables and a big game Brent Venables. I think there's just Venables, and he carries that intensity, the push for success, the drive out of his players, out of his assistant coaches. I think he carries that the whole way around. So I'm thinking the people sitting close to the sideline at the spring game probably going to be in for a treat, seeing some aggression that has been long overdue to come back to our sideline. So it'll be exciting. Good to see the offense and the defense too facing off. The Brent Venables led defense against Jeff Lebby's really high power.
You kind of cut out there for a second. You said his high powered. So when it comes to those sides, I'm really excited to see kind of how they go against one another. Uh, one thing I've been reading online, something I've been noticing is how the offense they're moving quick. Jeff Lebby's offense, it is meant to fly down the field to leave defensive players clueless. And we have the guys to do that. Eric Gray, he's incredibly fast. Marvin Mims and Theo Weiss, they're incredible pass catchers. And Dylan Gabriel has played in his system. And the defense has even come out in some press conferences saying that they're exhausted by the end of it. But at the same time, Brent Venables, he commanded an absolute unit of a defense at Oklahoma. And then at Clemson, he led that defense to two national championships. I mean, he knows what he's doing. So we're going to see a new aggressiveness on that side, but also a new speed and intensity on the offense. It's going to be really exciting to see. What do you think about Levy's new scheme?
I think it'll be really exciting to see. Getting to see it in action really last year, especially with Matt Corral. Just like you said, pushing down the field instantly. And, before my technical difficulties there, just talking about that really high powered offense, that fast quarterback driven offense, maybe even getting Dylan Gabriel to run a bit. Seeing that face off against the determined and really daunting defense that I think we're all expecting from Brent Venables. Not going to be not going to go from 0 to 100 overnight, obviously, but going to be a lot closer to 100 than I think we were. So getting to see that, see Lebby's offense on display. Maybe not too much of a change there, really, from Lincoln Riley, because Lincoln Riley, in large part, minus the very late part of last year, second half of last year, I guess, really, Lincoln Riley was really quarterback pass driven. Just kind of fell out of it for one reason or another. I think we know where his focus was, but it'll be good to see. Good to see some of that come back. What's the best part of the defense, you think?
We have more depth right now at linebacker than we've had in a while. because we've got some of the returning guys in like Deshaun White and Shane Witter. We've got some incredibly talented freshmen coming in, like Kobe McKenzie. We have a redshirt linebacker slash edge rusher, Clayton Smith. I mean, we have a whole bunch of guys, but also the defensive backs. He has a knack for putting defensive backs into the NFL, especially the ones that play both linebacker and defensive back, like Isaiah Simmons at Clemson. Or you look at the guy who got the first touchdown of the 2018-19 national championship, AJ Terrell, with the pick six against Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, he's put some monster defensive backs into the NFL. And with guys like Woody Washington, who in the 2020 season didn't allow a single touchdown in coverage, and then last year he was out most of the year due to injury, but when he came back, he deflected passes and had two interceptions. I mean, we've got some incredible talent just waiting to be unleashed. And I think with how aggressive and in your face Venable's scheme is, I think he is really going to bring a challenge to these Big 12 offenses that have been so explosive as of late.
Absolutely. Um, One of the best things about it too is going to just be the mindset coming back. You go to Google Images and search Venables coaching. You'll get just countless images of him on the sideline. Veins popping out of his head, just angry, yelling at his guys, challenging them to be better. That's something I feel like, looking at the last 5 years or so, we've probably been missing pretty significantly, and it's been a glaring gap. So it'll be good to have that back. And like you mentioned, Kobe McKenzie, for example, inside linebacker, vital part of a Brent Venables defense. We can look at player after player from Clemson at that linebacker spot. They get the big shoulder pads, neck pad. Looking to maybe see some of our guys come out of their shell there just a little bit, but it's going to be exciting. I'm real excited to see it.
It really will be. And one thing with Kobe McKenzie, I just kind of like to call him out for a minute because he he has been a very active person on our team, not just in the locker room, but on social media, on the recruiting side. He when Lincoln Riley announced he was going to USC, he decommitted from OU and went to Texas of all schools for like a couple of days. Then he comes back and says that he's not coming back alone. And so he starts going on the recruiting trail, bringing all these guys with him, and he's actively going after player. But also, what really stuck out to me is his size. So one thing that you've got to recruit for on defense is size. You can get all the 5-star, 5'10" players you want, but at the end of the day, they're 5'10". Kenneth Murray is arguably one of our best defensive players in the NFL right now. And Kobe McKenzie, who is still in high school, he's just about to graduate high school, has taken a picture with Kenneth Murray, and he's bigger than him. He still has a few years of growing to do, and he is bigger than Kenneth Murray. So we've got that size advantage coming back on defense, and he's
6'2"
fast.
and 238.
Oh yeah, he's a big boy, but he flies. That size doesn't slow him down because he flies up and down the field. He's a sure tackler. I mean, he is. I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting at least halfway through the season.
Yeah, I know today there was some audio that came out from one of our spring practices from this week, and it's former OU player Lane Johnson back out there giving a quick update, little video update. He was invited back out, as a lot of the players have been. That Pack the Palace movement has been huge, trying to get a lot of guys back out here. But Lane Johnson, he introduces himself. In the background, you're hearing Venables just screaming at Kobe McKenzie. First few seconds there, that's really all you'll pay attention to Lane Johnson. So it's pretty cool. Good to see. Kobe McKenzie's size definitely going to be a huge advantage. Kenneth Murray did enough at his size. I can only imagine what we've got in store for Kobe McKenzie. One I'm really interested to see too on the defense, see what Venables can do with him, is Ethan Downs. Just seeing him get into Um, show up, show out every day, and maybe get a little more, maybe get utilized a little more in the Venables defense.
Most
So,
definitely. 'Cause, if you remember last year, he was a true freshman last year out of, what was it, Weatherford, Oklahoma? And I think he started, like, half of our games, and one play where I really remember him is in that game against Western Carolina. It was in the first half. It was the only drive in the first half, if I remember correctly, where they crossed the 50, and they had it, like, 4th and 1 or 2, and he just flew into the backfield to blow up the play, single-handedly brought it done. It was over before it even got started. So he's really going to be a special player for us.
yep, agreed. I think the other big special player from our defense, one of the breakout players I would say to focus on this year, really watch for them to excel, really get some development, is going to be Jaden Davis. Um, Defensive back, 5'10. He's fast, moves around well, and he's one of these that I feel in the right scheme with the right coach, a whole lot of potential there. And I think that's what we're going to see brought to light here. Venables defensive backs, for the most part, aside from a down year or two, Venables DB has crushed it. Really solid where they were at. Um, but tied there on that breakout player is really going to be Ethan Downs for me. Seeing if we're able to utilize him well this year. Um, you look at old Skolsky from Clemson, who started so much time there last year, especially, and seeing what Venables, as a former linebacker himself, is able to do with a stocky, really well-rounded linebacker. Um, Exciting to see there. Who do you have as a potential breakout player there on the defensive side?
So my potential breakout player, who I was really excited to hopefully watch last year, but he ended up redshirting, and I'm really excited to watch this year. Is that guy I mentioned earlier, the linebacker slash edge rusher Clayton Smith. Clayton Smith was a 4-star on 24/7, if I remember correctly. He was a 5-star on Rivals. He is a absolute unit because he flies to the football. He reminds me a lot of a speedier Nick Benito. Nick Benito, very clearly one of the best defensive linemen we've had in a long time. But even then, Clayton Smith, he's a big guy who really he flies up and down the field just like that Kobe McKenzie. He's 6'5", 228, which goes back to that size we were talking about. 6'5", he's gonna be looking over the line of scrimmage, and he's gonna be able to get his arms up in the air and bat passes down. But that 228 pounds lets him fly after the quarterback. One of the very few games he played last year against Tulane, he even had a fumble recovery. I mean, he is a really, really special player who can really do a lot. And I think he is going to be kind of like how Obo Okoronkwo were and Eric Stryker were, how the two of them were, how it wasn't so much powering through the defensive line like you saw with Neville Gallimore. I think it's going to be more like by the time the ball gets in the quarterback's hands, he's already past the lineman. And at that point, the quarterback has to run for his life because he's got a mean defensive lineman coming after him. With Jaden Davis that you mentioned earlier, I think he's definitely a player to look out for. He was a 4-star player coming out of high school, and he's definitely been disappointed with his performance over the past couple of years. But at at, at the same time, he really has a lot of potential. He has the ability to be the next star defensive back, like we had Trey Brown and Trey Norwood. I think he has the potential to be the next version of those. And so that's who I have for the defense. And, someone, speaking of players who really haven't gotten their fair share, if you ask me, is on the offensive side. I have a breakout player from Marcus Major. He's a running back out of Oklahoma City. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. He's 6'2", 222. Last year, he wasn't able to play a lot of the year because he was academically ineligible. But before OU Texas, he was ruled eligible again. Why he hasn't been utilized more, I don't know. Because he does not go down with the first tackler. We've seen him in backup situations like against Florida in 2020 and against Texas Tech in 2021. We also saw him against Oregon in 2021, and each time he's averaging 7, 8, 9 yards a carry, and these are against starting defensive players that he's going up against, and he's just so difficult to bring down. I don't know why we don't utilize him more, but if he gets on the field this year, he is going to be a monster to stop. Do you have any player you're looking out for on the offense?
Marcus Major, I really agree with you there. He's going to be it's going to be an interesting one to see. Just kind of see how he breaks out. More broadly, Dylan Gabriel, seeing him in a Big 12, seeing him in I guess in a league that brings what the Big 12 brings, some of the variety, because obviously you have some of your air raid quarterback focused offenses, but the same time you get a nice variety of other type deals. Looking at Iowa State, looking at Oklahoma State and the defense uh, that they have, looking at some of the offenses available there, how he'll stack up. Just going to be a really new environment for him, I think, and really, really cool to see. Be a good judge of his fit in our system, and maybe Jeff Lebby converts him to a first, second round pick come the end of his tenure here. So that will be definitely something to watch out for. Outside of OU, obviously really excited for the spring game. Question for you: who's going to win, OU or the Sooners? Which one?
You
You got to
know,
put money on this.
you know, I think it's going to be a close game, but I actually think it'll be Boomer and Sooner who come in for a surprise upset victory. Who do you got?
It's going to be the Sooners. Sooners are going to get
Most
this.
definitely.
Um, Looking to the broader college football landscape, myself, I'm really excited for the Ohio State Notre Dame face off. Getting to see I guess it's not cross conference since Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, but getting to see these two teams face off against one another, not necessarily everyday opponents, um, and some of the talent that's going to be out there. Getting to have one near the beginning of the season where we get two blue blood programs, and maybe Ohio State notches an early loss. I have a lot of unnecessary disdain for Ohio State, um, partly due to Urban Meyer. So, you know, I'll usually root against Ohio State when it comes down to it, unless they're playing Texas. Then I'd be rooting for Ohio State then. But what are you most excited for?
There are a couple of games I'm really excited for and a couple players I'm really excited to watch. Texas, speaking of them, I am so excited to see them get obliterated in week 2. They are playing, if I remember correctly, in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. They might be playing in Austin, but I'm pretty sure it's in Tuscaloosa. They are coming off a 5-7 season, and I'm sure for some reason they are still going to be ranked coming into the year, but they're going to be going up against players like Will Anderson and Henry To'oTo'o on the defense. And Will Anderson, he just might be the best player in college football. CJ Stroud at Ohio State and Bryce Young at Alabama, they're phenomenal quarterbacks. But that Will Anderson, they call him the Terminator for a reason. And so I'm really excited to see Alabama play the marching band in the second half. And so one other thing I'm really excited for is what you mentioned, that Ohio State Notre Dame game, because CJ Stroud, I don't know which CJ Stroud is going to show up. Because if you look at some of the early games in the season when he was still kind of coming into his own, never started a game at Ohio State before, and suddenly he's the starter. He he was bailed out a lot by 3 first-round receivers in Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. Because you'd see some throws where these guys were wide open, and they'd be standing still, and they'd have to jump as high as they could to snag in the ball. Or he'd have a guy running downfield, and it would just go to his right or his left. He couldn't hit him. And then you see how he played in games like against Michigan State or in the Rose Bowl, where you couldn't have had a better performance on Madden on rookie difficulty. So I'm curious to see which CJ Stroud shows up, especially with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave being gone. And Notre Dame with their new coach, he he really has potential. I really like their new head coach. He's a real good guy. The players already love him. They don't have to learn anything new because he's been there for a while. And so you're getting an experienced coach with a lot of experienced players going up against an offense that might be just as good as they were last year, might be better, or might struggle. So I'm really looking forward to seeing those week 1 and 2 games, and just seeing how all the teams across college football react to the new landscape we're seeing with the name, image, and likeness stuff, the new players we're seeing rise to popularity, the new coaches implementing their new systems.
Definitely. Um, and for clarification, Alabama does play in Austin this year on September 10th. I think it's 22 and 23. I think they're back-to-back years. They'll be in Tuscaloosa next year. Definitely going to be an early test for Sarkisian and that Texas crew. Everybody knows, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Bob Stoops won a very mediocre amount of games in his first year at OU, but wasn't the best team we've had that very first season. Second season comes in, crushes the Big 12, wins the national championship. Who knows what Sarkisian has ahead of him here in his second year? Is it a national championship? Probably not, but going to definitely be something good to watch out for. Chris, I think that's about everything we were covering today. I appreciate you joining me. Appreciate everybody listening. Drop a follow here on our Twitter page. Look for these to come more as we get closer to the season. Kind of sporadic right now, kind of spread out as things happen. But we do look forward to these being weekly as we get closer to the season and get really into the grind of it. Also, shoot us a subscription there on YouTube. Look forward to hearing from you guys. Let us know if there's anything in particular you want covered next time. Until next time, Sam and Chris here for Crimson Creed. Goodbye.
Boomer Sooner.